You are the holy grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer, the priestess of wealth.
Welcome to the Woman Rising podcast, hosted by Kathy Hartenstein and Zephy Devi, where we elevate and celebrate inspiring women on the rise. In this podcast, we talk to women from all walks of life about their soul's journey, the obstacles they overcame, and how they embody their feminine power. We hope to elevate women's place in the world, showcase their contributions, and provide inspiration for all women to rise to their fullest potential. Today, our guest is Sarah McLean, a spiritual teacher, nonprofit founder, retreat facilitator, inspirational speaker, and best-selling author. She blends the spirit of Zen wisdom, Vedic knowledge, and the philosophy of the American transcendentalists with modern-day contemplative practices, contemporary brain science, and heart-based intelligence. Her journey began as a young woman when in residence at a transcendental meditation community over 30 years ago. There, she practiced meditation intensely on a daily basis and received advanced training in meditation techniques, all while immersed in the study and practice of the ancient healing arts of Ayurveda. In 1993, Sarah began her teaching career sharing contemplative practices alongside thought leaders and luminaries, while serving as the education director for Deepak Chopra's Center for Mind Body Health in California. After 8 years working with him, she then took a sabbatical, spending months at an ashram in India, immersed in bhakti, yoga, and seva, and then returning to the US to live and work in a Zen Buddhist training center. 2 years later, Sarah was invited to direct the School for the Work of Byron Katie, there immersing herself in the practices of self-inquiry that began while a Zen student. She then moved to Sedona, Arizona, where she opened a world-class destination meditation center offering meditation teacher training and weekend retreats. She began to serve as the director and now co-director of the Feast for the Soul, a nonprofit organization that created the world's first virtual 40-day spiritual practice period. Sarah is the best-selling Hay House author of Soul Centered, Transform Your Life in 8 Weeks with Meditation, and The Power of Attention, Awaken to Love and Its Unlimited Potential with Meditation. She now lives in Santa Barbara, California, where she offers online meditation classes, trains meditation and mindfulness teachers at the Meditation Teacher Academy, and continues her mission of helping people wake up to who they really are and become aware of the wonder and beauty of their life. Welcome, Sarah. It is our true pleasure to have you here today, as you were the founder and inspiration for Women Rising and have done so much to uplift and empower women.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Zephy. Well, thank you. I was thinking back to when this Woman Arising sort of emerged from inside me, and I think it was such a culmination of my experiences working for so many men that you didn't mention in there because I didn't put it in my bio. But I've spent many years as a support staff and um, really the person that these men were able to probably shine from, I'd have to say. I was just the other day, I was at the Illuminate Film Festival, which came to Santa Barbara from Sedona, and I'm on the advisory board. And Deepak
Nice.
Chopra was the opening speaker. Now I got a chance to talk to him. I said, "Gee, can you believe it's been 35 years since I saw you in a basement of a hotel in Florida?" That's when I first met him and decided I want to work for this man. 35 years later, and I get to be talking to him about our journeys. And Woman Arising was sort of born out of the fact that, I was constantly celebrating these beautiful men that had been thought leaders, whether it was Deepak Chopra, Gary Zukov, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And then, of course, in the Zen Monastery, my teacher, who was the late Mazumi Roshi, founded that place, and the Zen teacher there was also a man. And I just found that I was studying under all these men, but there were all these women doing amazing things that I wanted to highlight. I wanted to support them, even though they didn't ask me to necessarily. I really wanted to support them and to to celebrate their journey, because it's not the same journey as a man might take.
You're absolutely right. It's a very different journey that we take as women. And it was, I was there at 2008, I think it was. We did couple to, together, and then, all of a sudden you decide to give me or gift me, because it was a tremendous gift and an honor that you gave me Women Arising. And I was, we're sitting in a restaurant. I don't know if you remember, we had an Italian, it was the Italian, the one in Tlaquepaque in Sedona, and you said, take Women Arising to whatever you want to take it, and take it to the next level. And it was such a gift for me, and I love you and thank you for that, because you've been my friend, and you have supported me with so many things. And women need to do that to each other. We need to support each other and not come from negative connotation to each other, not to be jealous, and not to have all this stuff that we have as women. And I think, and then Kathy came in, because she's like, I did the first Women Arising. She says, I want to be part of it and I can help you. And I needed the help, trust me, because you gave me a big thing that I had to take on. And I know when you gave it away, there was no I don't know, it was just a gift. It was such a gift. And I want you to talk about that, because you are that kind of women. You give everything from your life and from your soul, and from you just give. So tell me a little bit about that, about how we can support women in that way.
Well, when you're mentioning all of this, I think back to many of my projects, whether it be a book or whether it be a nonprofit or whether it be a program like Women Arising. And they're in the Vedic tradition, and you probably know this. There's the impulse to create, the impulse to create, and then there's the impulse to maintain, and then there's the impulse to destroy. And it's just the life cycle. You can even consider it of a cell. It's created, it maintains its life, and then it dies, and it's just this big circle. And my energy is very much the creativity energy. So I love to build business. I love to build projects. I like to build nonprofits, and I like to get it all in order, whether it's the logo or the website or the people in charge or the mission. And then I like to say, okay, somebody else can maintain this. I did this a lot with Deepak Chopra, and he was really a pioneer in the world. As I said, I met him 35 years ago in a basement in Florida,
Mm.
where there were a few of us talking about Ayurveda. And he came, I followed him to Lancaster, where he was part of the TM organization. So I lived in this transcendental meditation community. But following his journey, he left there, went to California to start the Center for Mind Body Medicine. And it had so many iterations. It had so many fits and starts. It was one place, then we moved to another place. We were associated with this place. We moved to this other place until it became what it really was in its heyday. And so I really loved taking his ideas, his vision, and making it a reality. I love doing that. And then I like to leave and let someone else do it. So that's when I ended up in India. And so during the many years I worked for Deepak, I came back to teach for him, or not teach him, but teach through his programs after I came back from India. But I noticed, there were a lot of men being celebrated. I mean, the two men that led the program, the people that would come as guest speakers, the people that were all automatically given sort of an honor, some sort of honor, and sort of a platform to teach. And I found that that didn't happen so much as easily for women. And through my work with him, I got to meet some beautiful people. I got to meet a lot of women in their own right. I probably shouldn't name here for privacy reasons, but I did get to meet someone who said yes to a man named Eckhart Tolle. You know
Mhm.
that he wrote The
Yes.
Power of Now and went on to do a lot of other things, but he tried to sell his book to a number of publishers and could not get anyone to publish his book. And there was this one woman, her name was Constance Keogh, and she was in Canada. She had Namaste Publishing, and she said yes to him. And she was a woman who was just going for it. She's just like, I'm doing this. And I love to support women who are just doing it. against all odds, so to speak, or taking a risk, so to speak, or they're sort of the unsung heroes. And so with Woman Arising, I was trying to find ways to celebrate women who had been iconic in the world of women's empowerment. And so I had Constance come. I also invited, what the Wonder Woman. What was her name? She's a big meditation teacher now, Lindsay Wagner. I don't know if she was
Yes.
Wonder Woman or I
The
don't Super
bionic woman, I think.
Bionic. I don't watch TV. I didn't watch TV, but I knew she was pretty important. So I invited Lindsay Wagner of the Bionic Woman, and she came to speak about women's empowerment. And I also invited Clarissa Pincola Estes, and I know she wrote the book Women Who Run with the Wolves, and she's out of New Mexico and teaching women how to be more wild and powerful. That's who we are, really. And not to compete necessarily with men, but to have our own beauty and our own wildness and our own potency. And it was a funny story. I had a couple of dogs I rescued, and one of them passed away. So I ended up getting another rescue, and they told me it was a husky. So there I was with my two dogs, with this husky, and then I'm setting up Woman Arising. Well, it turns out this dog was not a husky. Turned out to be a wolf hybrid. So here I am setting up this Woman Arising, and I've got this wolf hybrid that I'm trying to bring up at home, and working with the woman who wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. And it was a little bit of a wild life living in Sedona. It's not so much now. It's pretty buttoned up with the Airbnbs and the tours. But back then, there was a lot of wildness. It wasn't as visited as often. And, we'd go out into the wilderness and hike for hours and hours and hours. And so I felt like this was the perfect example of what women can do. So I had those two women. There was another woman that we had, Zephy. Um, her name is Sharab Khandro. She was one of the first Tibetan Buddhist nuns that I had ever met in person and lived in Sedona. And she was also this amazing artist. I want to just move aside so you can see. That's one of her art pieces right there. She, I first met her in her robes, and she would paint these pictures one dot at a time. That whole thing is a pointillist picture, and she would paint one dot at a time, and each dot was a prayer. And I thought, wow, what power, what unsung potency, because she would do it in the silence of being this monastic. And there are many, many women like that. So I just thought, well, this is a great platform for women who are not necessarily the best marketers, not necessarily the loudest person in the room, but women who are making such a huge difference in the world that maybe are faceless, in the public eye.
I love that. And we're so proud to be part of that legacy that you started, because that's exactly why we're doing this podcast, is to elevate women and create spaces and have other women see themselves in each other. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for having that impetus and having that energy and taking that action, which it sounds like is something really inherent in you and really powerful. And we're so thrilled that we get to be part of that legacy with you. With that in mind, and I did have this beautiful bio that I read, but you've led an extraordinary life, and I'd love to hear a little bit about, your life's journey, how you got to where you are today. Like, what were some of the major obstacles that you had to overcome? What shaped and defined you along that path?
Well, how long is this podcast? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the highlight reel.
Part two. We can have part two.
Well, when you said her journey started, when you read my bio, I said, oh, I've got to rewrite that, because my journey started obviously with my first breath, or maybe even before that. But one thing that I believe needs to be mentioned is I joined the Army as a younger woman. I was 17, and I was having a very difficult life at home. And in the town I grew up in outside of Boston, women especially, did not just go and join the Army. I don't think anyone in my high school did that. So I did it because I wanted to be a spy. Thinking back to my the archetypes that I grew up with, or my heroines that I grew up with, and I liked, Private Benjamin. I loved Nancy Drew. I loved the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. I liked women who took a journey, and I also like solving mysteries. So when I joined the army, I wanted to be a spy. Now, that sounds crazy maybe, but I was always interested in the undercurrent of things, which comes full circle as a meditation teacher, because what in the world is going on in meditation that can light you up so brightly and can enlighten you? I mean, there's something going on that's very mysterious and subtle. But back then, I couldn't put any words to why I wanted to do this. I ended up not becoming a spy, but I ended up becoming a behavioral specialist, which is someone who's trained to work with soldiers who are suffering from the effects of post traumatic stress. And so, unfortunately, in the military, a lot of them ended up on medication, like probably still today, or in psychiatric hospitals, which the military would run. I was working in a company of soldiers that were nurses and doctors and people like me who are trained to kind of help people find safety and security after their world's been blown apart, whether it's physically, mentally, or they watched a horrific scene. So, as a part of my training, we were sitting outside of one of the psychiatric hospitals, and we were on a break. And a male nurse said, "Let's do something here. It's pretty stressful in here. Let's practice something I think you'll enjoy." So he had us lying down on the lawn, and he took us through a body scan, going from head to toe, asking us to relax the body. And we were lying down and just to feel the support of the earth. It was a beautiful day in New England. And I remember thinking after that 10 minutes that something magical had happened. It felt like, okay, I've never been this relaxed. What was becoming apparent to me was that I was so wound up from living in such a unsafe environment growing up, that I was so wound up that I had no idea that I was stressed out. And I know some people feel that way when they get a massage, or they're finally relaxing after a really long day, or they go on vacation. They go, I did not take some 5 days to unwind. People don't realize that they're wandering around so worked up, and I didn't realize it either. So that 10 minutes made such a difference and really planted a seed in terms of the potency power of meditation. So that's where the meditation journey got off on one of its feet. I used to be a great follower of the Beatles, and I loved the Yellow Submarine, and I loved their music, and I knew they meditated too. So when I was younger than that, I was 16. I used to pretend I was meditating. And what did that look like? It looked like me sitting cross-legged in the back of a subway, going from the suburbs into Boston, going to where the great American transcendentalists found their way at the Harvard Divinity School. And I would sit there, close my eyes, assume the position, and wonder what to do next. I didn't know, but I knew that I wanted to know. So, so the journey really started with this curiosity, trying to uncover a mystery, trying to be powerful, um, and not taking power, but finding power inside, you know. I love what you said, Zephy, in the beginning of this, when you said, we women have to support each other. There's so many subtle ways that we don't. And I really want to share a couple of touchstones for me that have been helpful. First of all, there's a practice that you can do, but it's also a benefit you can receive from meditation, and it's called mudita, Mudita. Mudita is what's called sympathetic joy. It's from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, but it's something we can all practice. Mudita means that when you see or hear about someone that has had great success, whether it's an icon, whether it's a friend, whether it's your sister, your brother, whomever, if you hear about someone who has great success, what we can do is just notice our response to it. Now, I grew up in a family that didn't believe there was enough for everybody. And we had enough money, but we didn't have enough love. We didn't have enough attention. We didn't have enough compliments. We didn't have enough affection. So when, let's just say, someone in my family might have heard someone was having a wonderful experience, somehow they took it as an affront, and took it personally. And then the response would be, look at her. Doesn't she think she's something? So this is what I was growing up with, or you love that cat more than you love me, or, and there was always this limit on success, this limit on love, this limit on people's power. And I realized there is no limit. Love is limitless. Attention, well, can be limited, but affection doesn't have to be. And success, of course, is unlimited. So mudita is when you hear about someone having a successful moment or some sort of celebration, what can happen is you can be sympathetically joyful for them, sincerely, not sappy, like, oh, I'm going to send you a card, but really embodying that feeling of joy for that person. And it's really an elevated state. And I think also as women, because there's biologically, maybe historically, maybe it's even in the Bible, where um, Abraham, was with a couple of wives, right? Because Sarah, that's my namesake, right, couldn't have children, so he found a younger, more beautiful, more fertile woman. And I think that's part of our DNA growing up as women in the world. Is there sometimes can be, here comes someone to steal my man, and whether we are conscious of that or not, it's in a lot of our storylines that I grew up with. And so just recognizing that every woman is powerful, and we're not stealing from each other if we're shining, because we can all shine brightly. So to recognize the ways in which we undermine or um, reduce someone's beauty, whether, oh my God, aren't they a little chubby, or look at her, she's not aging well, or whatever it is we say, is to knock it off and support each other in all the beautiful moments of our life, going from a young woman to I'm not loving the word, but to a crone, I mean, just loving each beautiful aspect of our aging and each other's.
I
So
love that.
yeah.
I love the concept of sympathetic joy, and that it's something that we truly feel in ourselves as well as for somebody else. And that as one of us rises, we all rise in that sense. So I think that's very powerful. Um, and you touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit about, like, what were some of the obstacles that you overcame in, because I mean, you've had such a varied and long journey, and I know you talked a little bit about growing up and some of those obstacles, but in your journey, were there any major obstacles that you had to overcome?
Well, let me ask you this: what journey are we talking about here?
Any journey you want to share.
Okay.
The ones that were most significant for you.
Well, every single part of our journeys is essential. I think of our spiritual journey, maybe I'll talk about that, as a labyrinth. It looks like, okay, how hard can it be to go from the entrance to the center? But you end up getting close and then having to go all the way around, and then getting close again and going all the way around. And I feel like that's symbolic of our journey to self awareness. And so I think what I'll do is share just the impetus for the book I wrote, which is called Soul Centered, which is the opposite of codependence and what Deepak Chopra might call object referral. And what does that mean? It means that, well, I'll just share with you. I was doing a retreat last 2 weeks ago in Sedona called the Heart Awakening Retreat. And this woman raised her hand, and she's been a student of mine for many years. And she goes, well, what is happiness anyway? Now, I'm not going to define it for you, but I can say that there are many people that would say happiness is, you know, um, a really good pizza, or happiness is, a really good outfit, or happiness is, it's something external. Happiness is a great movie. And I said, happiness it should be for no reason. But what's even higher than happiness, in my belief, is contentment and great fullness, is to feel really full with your life, that you're not searching for something outside of you to make you happy, like, oh good, my garden is flourishing perfectly, that makes me happy, or I got a great birthday present, that makes me happy. happiness should not be dependent on anything. And I know many of us, and I was one of them, outsourced our happiness. We would outsource our happiness to a relationship, to what we see in the mirror, to what we are surrounded by in our homes, to the bank balance in our accounts, to our, and I know people do this now. Maybe I've got the vocabulary wrong, but to how many likes people get, or how many followers people have, or how many people they influence, or all these various external measures of success can really be destabilizing if that's where we're looking for our success, if that's where we're looking for our personal sense of fulfillment and gratitude. So, what I wrote this book about is being soul centered, meaning your center point of defining yourself is in your interior. The numbers, the letters, they don't mean anything. They come, they go, just like your body, like your breath. So, what's really important is this moment and this moment and this moment, and having this God given contentment that we all have be the center point of our lives. And what this does over time is it helps you to become very intuitive, very sensitive, self-directed. You know yourself so well that you're very aware of your yums and your yucks. You know when you're off center. I never knew. Like I said, it was such a surprise, in that 10 minutes on the lawn that I was off center. I had no idea. And so it's this center point of peace is also what helps you to feel centered, grounded, clear, and present and connected. It's not like you're disconnected in any way. In fact, the more connected you feel in your interior, the more you recognize everything else is plugged into the same thing. So, this was part of my journey because I was very codependent. If someone asked me how I was doing, I'd say, "Well, what do you think? How do you think I'm doing?" Like, you tell me, I have no idea. Or tell me who I am. The existential question, who am I, um, is not often asked by people who are codependent. They'll ask someone else, "How did I behave? How was I doing over here? Did everybody like me?" And so just really learning to move on into the interior and work it all out inside. And it doesn't mean you don't have great teachers. It simply means the interior is where your wellspring of wisdom lives. Yeah, that's the book I wrote, Soul Centered. And I wrote it in 2012. It was going to be a longer book. Then this woman came out of Harvard, Sarah Lazar. She had just studied what 8 weeks of meditation does for someone's brain and the various parts of the brain that are affected by silent, in her case, she was doing silent breath awareness practices. And the people's brain changed so much so that they became less reactive because their amygdala had shrunk a little bit. They were better learners and had better memories because of their hippocampus got a little denser. Their neocortex had a little more neuronal pathways, so they were a little more present and had emotional control. And so here this woman was writing about 12 weeks, I mean 8 weeks, and I'm like, well, that's what I'm going to do, is write about an 8-week program, because I know it can change your brain. And then if you change your brain, you can change your behavior. But oftentimes, I feel like everything that happens is happening for us, not to us.
Well, and I love this idea of um, kind of remembering that we generate what we feel and how we experience the world, and that the external can then reflect that versus letting the external kind of define us. And I think that's such a powerful distinction. So it's really beautiful. And putting that together in that book is really helpful, for people to be able to have the actual tools to go through that process. Because I think a lot of people are caught between, like you're discussing.
You talked about being amongst men, and amongst them, you wanted to create something about women. But what was the time that you found your own inner feminine power and your own femininity to say, I'm going to stand up to for who I am and what I'm about. I'm a woman with all this, but then We
Yeah.
let men do it, most of it, but when it was your time.
Well, I do think it was after I came back from India, I lived with a female guru, the Hugging Saint, some of you know. And I came back to work again for the Chopra Center. They had gone through some fundamental changes and needed me to come put the pieces back together. And then I left and went to live at a Zen monastery. I became the cook there. And every morning we would chant a lot of different chants. And there were some days we chanted the lineage of all the teachers that went before us. Every single one was a man. Every single man, every single name we chanted, every I think it was the Sesshin, was a man, and I thought, "Well, gosh, don't these men have mothers? Don't these men have women in their lives that have supported them in some way?" And it really became apparent to me that we were not ever gonna be chanting my name. Not that I needed my name to be chanted, but we were never gonna be chanting my teacher's name. I had a married couple that were my teachers, and we probably never chant her name either. And so I started to notice this. Obviously, I noticed it in the military. I was um, one of the so there was 1 to 4, I think 1 woman to every 4 men there, and we trained with the men, and my, superiors were all men, and they had certain, plans for women in the military, let's just put it that way. And so, I found myself having to defend myself regularly, fighting off, physical, advances that were unwanted, or I'd have to say something like, "Don't touch me like that" in my workplace. And people would be, "Well, that's just how I am." I'm like, "Well, this is my body." And so it took a while to kind of I get to have a life free from all of that interference, and I think I'm trying to think. I think it was just a gradual. It's almost like a gradual experience of just having a voice. And I think it started when I started teaching. Who am I to teach? Who am I to get out there and share what I've learned with meditation? And no offense to any man who might be listening here, but I do want to say that women tend to be over prepared for the roles they take on, whereas men would be like, "Oh, being president, how hard would that be? I can do that." Where a woman would be, "Well, I'm not sure I have the experience or the education." And I just watched that over and over and over and over again. And I had dedicated my life to really exploring the the mysteries of the mind and the mysteries of the brain and the mysteries of consciousness itself. And yet I just found that my contemporaries would, if they were men and they were trying to get to the same place I was getting, teaching, let's just say, or having a platform or writing a book, they were celebrated so easily and so quickly. And that was not the case for women like me, you know. So I just felt like, just keep on going. Just let's keep on going. I'm going to create my own platform for it, And thank you for keeping it up.
Yeah, and because I know a little bit of your life story, I know even your bicycle story, but I don't know if you want to talk about that. That was if you, because that also shows me you were young and you still had that that zest for life, but also you were having the freedom of saying, "I'm not afraid," being in the military, doing all that, and also taking, if you want to talk about that across
So
the
funny.
world.
I think I was maybe too dense to be afraid. I mean, so I would get on my bicycle, and I had never even ridden my bicycle fully loaded with my panniers and all my bags and stuff. So I decided my boyfriend at the time had just been in Africa, and he said, he was going to go around the world for 2 years. So he got malaria and he came home. He goes, "You know what? The best way to travel isn't backpacking. The best way to travel is on a bicycle." So we went out and we bought some bikes. He was recovering from malaria. We weren't going anywhere anytime soon. But 5 months later, I graduated from college, and um, we bought the bikes, and they were one of the first mountain bikes. So this is a long, long time ago. And I was riding my mountain bike around, and people were like, "What kind of bike is that?" And I got it loaded up. We decided to fly into Greece. All right. We flew into Athens, and Zephy, you know what it takes to go from the airport to the port, which is Piraeus. There's a lot of highways between the airport and the ferry. And I had never gotten on my bike and ridden it with all this stuff on it. And I'm like, I can't do this. Now here I am I'm planning a year or two to go around the world on my bike, and I wouldn't even get on it. And here comes this man on a bicycle that was rickety, awful, loaded down with all kinds of stuff, and he was having the time of his life riding it. And I stopped him. I said, "Can we switch bikes?" Because I knew he could ride that bike, I could ride that bike, and he could ride my bike, so I could watch him. And so we switched bikes, and off we go to Piraeus on this, and his bike was bad, and he did not wanna switch back. But we did eventually switch back, and that began a trip, um, up and down. Well, I went to a couple of islands, but then we ended up in the Peloponnese during one of the biggest heat waves in Greece. I was seeking at the time, I hadn't meditated. The boyfriend, ironically, that I was with had been a Zen monk. It's very short time. So he started to teach me these chants that eventually I started to chant. The main one being to Avalokiteshvara, which is Kuan Yin, which is, here she is, the white Tara. They're all, they're iconic. They're all different names, but they're all the same kind of archetype. But it was hard. I was gone for 9 months on my bicycle. Ended up shaving my head and dressing like a man most of the time, especially when I was in Turkey and Pakistan, because it was not safe to be a female, there. So I'd get away with it, sometimes. And, yeah, I was fearless. I was fearless, and I was looking for the answers for, I'm just curious, like, where is the mystery of life? What about all these mystics and these temples in Greece, and then the Greek temples that are in Turkey, and then what about the whirling dervishes, and what about this place way up in the north up in Swat Valley in Pakistan where, it's by China, but where they live forever up in Hunza Valley, and I just wanted to find out the secrets of life, and I was, again, externally focused when the fact is the secrets, the intelligence, the wisdom is all structured in consciousness. It's all available when we settle down and we have that awakening internally. But I had to travel around the world. My boyfriend ended up getting really sick way up in the Golden Triangle. I left him in the hostel and I went out on a trek. I came back 4 days later and he was delirious, had pneumonia. We ended up having to go back because he was too sick. But we stayed there for 2 weeks to stabilize him. But that was just a journey to finding. I mean, I'll go anywhere. I'll try anything to get enlightened. Really, I mean, really.
I agree with you on that. I definitely agree with you because I have a similar situation in my life. But I never drove a bike. I like it a little bit more, maybe a car.
Yes, you
That's the
have a
world.
nice cars and stuff. Yeah, not me. I'm a little scrappy. I don't mind though. I mean, there are many ways to climb a mountain. You
You're
can go in
right.
a Chauffeured vehicle, you can go on a mountain bike.
You but I'm not, but you are fearless. We're all young when we're fearless, correct? But
Well,
a lot of women, when they get a little bit older, they get a little bit more stuck on their ways. And, there are pioneers like us that we just say, let's just do it. So what advice would give the women that they're not young anymore, that are in that space of like, when they're young, they were fearless, but then they hit over 40, they want to be more settled, but they're still searching. What would be that advice? I'm asking you that question and getting chills. So there's something you're going to tell me that's going to be
oh,
amazing.
well, I was in Sedona. I was on the board of Keep Sedona Beautiful, and I just was such an environmentalist. I can remember the first Earth Day. I've been often out. You'll often catch me out collecting trash on a beach or a highway. I don't care. I'll collect it, and whatever. But I was on the board, and there were opportunities to speak. And, I'm comfortable one on one, two on one, maybe four on one. But if anything like 10 on one or 20 on one or whatever, I was like, whoa, I don't know why that is because it's nervous system to nervous system. It's really just me and you, no matter who's listening. But I had this belief system that I literally remember saying it, I do not speak in public.
Mm.
So here I am. I hadn't yet written my book. I hadn't yet started Women Arising, but I had been meditating for years. And this woman, she's gone now, Barbara Luttrell. She was the president of Keep Sedona Beautiful. I had brought her in because she loved to speak in public. And one day she said to me, she actually was one of the publishers of Women's World. It was, or some sort of women's magazine, really pretty popular one when magazines were popular, and Working Women. That was it. And she
Mhm.
said to me, Sarah, why don't you speak in public? And even though I had been working for Byron Katie up till then, I'd been working with a number of people. I said, I don't speak in public because, and then I didn't have an answer. And so I think what's really essential and what she did for me and what everybody can do for themselves is say, now, why don't I do that? And say, is it true I don't speak in public? And how do I react when I believe that thought? And more importantly, who would I be if I didn't even believe that thought that I don't speak in public? Well, I'd be speaking in public. And that's what I started to do. And it's not easy. It's just like I just started beekeeping. It's not always intuitive. Speaking in public initially for me was a little challenging. Writing a book was challenging, but it's just everything can be deconstructed from to one step at a time. So what do you do? Okay, you practice. Okay, what are you going to talk about? Well, you write an outline. Okay, where are you going to do it? Well, when someone invites me, I say yes. So I think that when we say no and we're really comfortable saying no, and it's not a no from here, but it's a no from here, we need to ask ourselves, is it true? Who would I be without that thought? What would it be like if I just said yes? And yeah, you have to deal with all your inner dialogues and all your self-limiting beliefs. Affirmations help, self-inquiry is helpful. Whatever those tools are, this is the time to use them so that you can say yes when the call comes to step into your greatness. I mean, I remember being at the Hay House I Can Do It event, 5,000 people in the audience meditating along with me. It was one of my dreams come true. So, but I would have said no if I hadn't asked myself, who would I be without this thought? I wouldn't have said yes. So I think, and I'm one of the types of people that I will try something new all the time. I will try. I mean, I always have to be on the ground. I'm not jumping out of any planes or doing something that requires me to leave the groundedness that I favor, but I will try anything.
Yeah, and that's a great advice to give to women that will try things as long as we're conscious and say yes to it. I
Yeah.
think that's a great advice because we all, after 40s, we get comfortable and we don't want to do things. And then we're blaming our lives that we didn't do our dream. We never came through to our dream. So that is an amazing advice. And thank you for that.
I
Amazing.
love the thought, who would I be without this thought? I think that's really powerful because I think sometimes the only limits in our lives are the limits we've put on ourselves. And so to be like, who am I without that thought? That one thought is such a powerful thought.
Yeah, leads to liberation for sure. And it's okay if all you want to do is sit in your room and meditate or play with your cat or whatever it is. But let's find contentment in that. It doesn't mean you have to go do different great things that other people are doing. It's just your software, your potential is what is calling you forth, and if you can live a mindful life, which means paying attention to what you're doing while you're doing it and paying attention to the environment you're in and maybe the signs and wonders that are present, and maybe live your question, what's my next step? What am I supposed to do with my talents here? Is there anything I should be aware of? And then when you're mindful, it will start to occur. The people will give you these hints, whether you want them or not, and whether they seem friendly or not. I want to tell you one last story because here I am in Santa Barbara. I started in Massachusetts, but ended up here in California for many years because of the work I was doing with Deepak and Byron Katie and Gary Zukoff and Debbie Ford and all these different people that were out here in California. Um, I I just had a couple thoughts at the same time, but let me just follow one. So I was living in Sedona because that's where my husband lived, and I moved there to be with him, which I didn't want to do because I'm I don't consider myself a desert girl. Sedona, as you know, Zephy, doesn't usually let people stay there unless you're really meant to be there. And within 2 years, most people are kicked out, right? So 17 years later, I'm still in Sedona, and I've been trying to get back to California since the day I got there, literally. So my husband's like, well, I know you need water. So let's build a little house by the creek here. And he bought the piece of land and we designed this house and we were very excited. It happened to be in an HOA where they had to approve our house. So we sold our big house on the hill, which I was glad about because it was far too big. And we're trying to build this manageable house and we'd have to go to the HOA and they only met once a month. So we'd go with our plans and they'd say, no, that roof line's 6 inches too long, too tall. And we'd go back and then come back next month. We'd go again. They go, well, you don't have the details between where the driveway's meeting the road. Why don't you come back next month? So we would go like that. And this woman, wow, I thought she was my arch enemy. But who would I be without this thought? So after we rented a house and sold our other house, and we keep going to these meetings where this woman just is like the biggest block to me living there. I said to Marty, "Why don't we wait this out in California?" And we ended up ended up 2 doors down from where I currently live in a rental house with my dogs, and, I could feel that this is my spot. Now I thought I was coming here for different reasons, which I won't go into because 'cause they're a little political, but I came here and, we ended up buying the house 2 doors down from this in this town I had never heard of, and, in this place which I'm so grateful to live in right now amongst all these organic farms, and it's literally heaven on earth, and, that woman is now a saint for me. She's like my angel. So you just never know. But this is the sign, then the wonder. I mean, this is it. I obviously withheld my fury. I didn't beat her up. I didn't yell at her. I just kept feeling this. What is this about? What is this about? So, and here we are. And that's what it's about. I got here 6 years ago and I'm living in a place that is just glorious. And I'm very grateful to that woman every day.
Sometimes the biggest enemy is the biggest angel, and
Right.
in everything that we think at the moment it's an enemy or doesn't like us or whatever, but it's actually the angel that takes us to the next place.
Yeah.
So that's a great advice also to give to the
Yeah.
women that are listening to us. So at that moment that we feel that, let's just shift it and just say, oh, this might could be an angel for me, could have
Yeah.
something to show me.
Yeah.
So
Well, one other, moment, I have to say there were so many pivotal moments. One of them was, not speaking up. So you just remind me of that, um, that the biggest enemy could be the biggest angel. And so when I was in the military, I got married to a guy that, I got married to him because I thought he looked cute. He wasn't cute. He was a convicted felon, and he was also, somebody who liked to hit women. And he didn't like the fact that I, um, kinda had a light about me like we all do. And he told me I wasn't allowed to look at anyone in the eyes, and I had to walk with my eyes down toward the ground. And I lived with him and was married to him for, well, 2 weeks into it, I wanted a divorce, but that didn't go well. Um, so I spent a lot of time just not engaging with people because it was dangerous to do that. And, so he really, was you see these stories about people that get killed by their partners. Well, he was one of those people, and I'm so grateful I'm alive today because oftentimes he'd go to bed with a gun or a knife and say, "One of us will be dead in the morning." And, it was exhausting, it was demeaning, it was disempowering and all that, and it was also dangerous, all the D words. So eventually I got my act together to leave, but took many years to leave him. And, I hide today even. I mean, I'm a public figure, but I don't publish my address anywhere. Let's just put it that way. And but for him, even though he was my greatest enemy at the time and obviously a danger to my life, I was really able to not fall for, now this may be crazy, but not fall for that fairy tale story of, being married is going to fix it. being married, having children is going to make my life so good. Because I knew it didn't. I knew being married wasn't going to fix anything. It was a contract. It was a trap in my case that I couldn't get out of. So that was one of my great enemies, but it also afforded me this freedom of choice and sort of stepping out of the hypnosis of social conditioning, which, really involves the happily ever after. And I go, okay, well, wait a minute, that is not true for me. So what is true?
Mhm.
And so that was one of my great enemies. Another great enemy that many people are dealing with today is cancer. And I had cancer at a fairly young age. I mean, it's more prevalent now, but way back when I had it 30 years ago, 30-year-olds didn't get cancer, and not like I did. And it was right here. And it was really born out of this constant repression of my true voice. I did not say what I meant. I did not say anything except for what I thought you wanted to hear. And so many people are fighting cancer, just like they're fighting their boyfriends or they're fighting this injustice. And what I had to learn was to love cancer. I had
Mhm.
to love my body. I had to love the parts of my body that went astray from their actual dharma or their actual purpose. And I had to love and create harmony in my body and deal with it that way. I mean, I did everything I could, but that was one of the main things I did. And that really helped me to navigate the surgery and my healing. But it's so that I would say was definitely a pivotal point where from then on, I decided I was going to say things, I speak the truth sweetly, no matter what, and no matter who agreed with me and who didn't. So
I
that was
love
definitely a journey. Hmm.
I absolutely love that, and I think those shifts in perspective are so monumental and so powerful. And with that in mind, I'd love to hear sort of reflecting on your life journey because there's so many different wonderful aspects of it. Um, what do you think are the insights that you learned that you feel could really help other women? What do you think would be essential for them to embrace as maybe they navigate their paths?
Don't underestimate yourself. That's the first thing. Don't underestimate yourself. Yeah, you might have failed many, many times, but if you look at a basketball player or a golfer, they're going to miss a lot of hoops, a lot of holes. They're going to miss it. 20% of the time, people, I think it was Elon Musk said, he fails 20% of the time. I think we have to be okay failing. I think we have to be okay saying no, also. That's another thing. Or okay saying yes. I
Mhm.
think I think, just be really kind to yourself and be your best cheerleader, and it's okay to fail, it's okay to go against the grain, it's okay to follow your inner GPS, because it's not necessarily what everybody else wants. As a woman I married my husband when I was over 40, and he likes to tell me where to park and how to drive. He just loves that. And I go, I survived a really long time without that instruction. So I mean, it's kind of fun to just know that you are powerful on your own. And yes, it's helpful to have a helpmate or someone who can support you. Also, look at who you spend time with. Um, I was thinking back to the disempowered days. I've been disempowered a lot of my life, through no fault of my own, just belief systems I adopted. And I noticed that many of my friends were also disempowered. Now, I found myself to be very compassionate toward them and wanting to help them. But at a certain point, and I was just thinking about this the other day, people that are victims of their life, and there are true victims, I know, because I was one of them, but people who are victims, have the victim mentality, um, may not be the people you want to spend a lot of time with. People who don't have contentment may not be the people you want to spend a lot of time with. And people who are not grateful may not be people you want to spend a lot of time with, because there are a lot of people that are still externally focused, like I was, like many of us, trying to find the solution outside you. And I would say some of them have needs that you cannot fulfill. And there's a song, I have a theme song for them. More, more, more. How do you like it? How do you like it? So these they want more, more, more of you. And so recognizing when that's not helpful, and it's not helpful for them, to
Mm,
recognize that the solutions lie within and you can point to them. You be the mirror of the relationship. I think that's helpful too.
that's absolutely beautiful. This has been just tremendous to be able to have this level of conversation with you today, Sarah. If people wanted to connect with you or reach out to you, how would they do that? And is there anything coming up that people could participate in that you're offering?
Well, thank you for asking. You can always reach out to me. I have 2 websites. Maybe you can put this under the notes or something. Well, one is McLean Meditation. That's my last name. And oh, I'm just going to tell you something about that real quick. I had the name Sedona Meditation as my meditation company. And then a company moved in, very deep pockets, and they decided they were going to be called Sedona Meditation. So there I was. I didn't have, I mean, I had invested a lot of time and money into that. And I thought, well, what am I going to name my company now? And then I thought of Hay House, my publisher, Louise Hay. I thought of Debbie Ford and her Ford Institute. I thought of the work of Byron Katie and Byron Katie running that program. I thought of Deepak Chopra and the Chopra Center. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to call it after my last name. And it was that was such a journey for me because I didn't even put my picture on my website at one point. So this full journey has taken me my website's McLean Meditation, MCLEAN meditation.com. And what I just opened up is my 32nd class or cohort of the Meditation Teacher Academy. I've taught hundreds of teachers around the world to go out and teach meditation because I do believe it's everyone's birthright to be able to meditate, but there are a lot of bad teachers out there that mean well, but can thwart someone's journey because I believe if you meditate every day, you will live your very best life. I really believe it because you can get out of your own way and you can tap into the wisdom of potential and uncertainty, and you can really tune into the direction you need to go. Anyway, so that's starting in June. Actually, I think it's June 9th is the first class. And so I'd love anyone listening to this to join me for that. We keep it going a couple times a year, but I had taken a sabbatical during COVID. Also, I do first Sunday meditation, so you can join me for meditation the first Sunday of any month. And I also lead retreats, and I'm leading one in Ireland in May, and I'm leading another one in Sedona, which is the Heart Awakening, next April. So I'm also available to inspire your group, facilitate a retreat for you, for anyone who wants to learn some lessons, because I really do feel like living this long has given me a lot of insight, and I really try to put into practice everything I'm teaching, really and truly. I hold myself to a pretty high standard. So I want to teach other people how to do the same thing.
And it's honorable to live in high standards. We have to have that for ourselves. We should
Yeah.
never lower ourselves. High standards is that
Yeah.
I
And
love.
it doesn't mean being perfect or looking perfect. It really means, okay, I'm thrown off here. I know what to do to get back on track and be who I really am. And I'm not for sale. I know a lot of people in this world are for sale right now, whether they're for sale for likes, for influencers, for votes. I know a lot of people sell their integrity for that. I think it's really essential at this point to know yourself and to stay true to who you are outside of the outside influences.
I think that's so important. Anyway, we thank you so much for being our honored guest today, Sarah, and to hearing your story, and for the gift of Women Arising, and for all that you've done to really elevate women through all the many aspects of the different ways in which you work in this world. So we thank you so, so much.
Well, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Zephy. I know you're on a mission. Let me know how I can support you. I really do want to. And I think our tagline should be, "You go, girl." I mean, really.
I like that. And thank you so much and for taking this invitation and continue supporting us. And and I love you for that. You know that. You're in my heart.
I love you too. Your heart and my heart are very old friends.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for tuning in to Woman Arising, where we celebrate the resilience, wisdom, and power of women on the rise. Remember, when women rise, we all rise. If you're ready to embark on your journey of empowerment, sign up for our mailing list at womenarising.com and join our community of strong, inspiring women. To connect with Zephy Devi and ignite your inner fire, visit zephydevi.com and sign up to get your free tantric meditation. Let Zephy illuminate your path, helping you discover the magic and power that reside within you. To connect with Kathy Hartenstein and claim your spectacularness, visit createmorebliss.com and sign up for a free 30-minute consult call where she can help you break through your emotional blocks to success. Let Kathy be your guide on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Thank you for being a part of the Woman Arising community. Together, let's continue to uplift, inspire, and empower women everywhere. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep embracing the divine feminine power that resides within you.
You are the holy grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer.